Good morning, YouTube family. It's Andrea here at VW Family Farm, and today I am making this video for y'all. I have had several requests lately asking about sprouting wheat berries, sprouted flour, how to make that at home. So I thought, I've never thought about doing a video on it before. It's pretty a simple process, but I thought, you know what, let's talk about it and let me show you how to make it, because it can save you a ton of money sprouting your own flour at home instead of buying sprouted flour, because that can get quite pricey. First off, I want to mention, I'm asked all the time, where do you get wheat berries? Where do you buy those? Well, you can buy them a number of places. I'm not going to say they're in every store and just super easy to come by, but you can order them several places. I've seen them in health food stores and things like that. I personally buy mine at Azure Standard. That's where I buy a lot of our staples. We raise our meat, vegetables, fruit, dairy, those type things here on the farm, or we source them locally. But for staples, Azure Standard is my go-to. There's always a link below for them. I've had quite a few questions about them as well, about they don't have a drop in my area. What can I do? And they do deliver to your home through a delivery service without, even if you're not on their drop route or drop schedule. So you can always look into that, especially if you're looking for just a few items. The shipping wouldn't be terrible to have them shipped directly just to your house. I've done that when I first started and didn't know about their drops. So that's definitely an option. The reason I buy from them for my wheat berries as well as everything else is because I can get a much cheaper price than any other place online, as well as a lot of the health food stores along my route. They were stopping at those before they came to my drop, which is just a huge group of people that meet together and meet the truck and pick up the groceries. So that told me I was getting the same price as like the health food store, the natural food stores, places like that. So I was essentially cutting out the middleman, and it saved me a ton of money in the process. Now, you're not gonna get comparable products to like the cheapest of the cheap store brand that's not organic, and you know nothing about all that you would at a discount grocery store. You are paying for a good quality product, but it's the cheapest way I have found to do it. So let's move on. Why do we want to sprout wheat berries? Why in the world would we want to do that? Well, number one reason is phytic acid. People will pronounce that differently, phytic acid, all kinds of stuff. I call it phytic acid. It's designed to protect seeds, nuts, beans, things like that. All those things that can kind of gas you up and bloat you up and leave you feeling blah afterwards. The phytic acid is designed to protect those because those are actually full of all kinds of good things inside. Enzymes and vitamins and minerals and things, but our body does not contain the component to break down that phytic acid to unlock all those good things. So soaking and souring and things like that unlocks all that and makes those things actually healthy for us, whereas unsoaked, unsprouted, they could actually be damaging your gut lining. So that's why we want to do these things. Now, you know I love sourdough baking. I'm really into sourdough. So why would I want to sprout as well? Well, the reason is sometimes, even on a whole food journey, sometimes you want to make a cake or cookies or tortillas or something like that you don't want the classic sourdough flavor to, or maybe sourdough just won't work well in that recipe. So sprouting is another way to essentially use like plain flour and it not taste like sourdough, I guess you'd say. To me, one is not better than the other. They go hand in hand. Sometimes you can use sourdough, sometimes you're gonna wanna use sprouted flour. So I actually keep both on hand. I will sprout wheat, and then after you sprout it, you dehydrate it back out, and I don't even grind it into flour at that point. I put it in my freezer, and then I grind as I need it, because as soon as you grind and make it into flour, it will start to go rancid. Even flours you're buying off the store shelf, there's no telling how old they are. They've lost a lot of their nutritional value that makes those things healthy for you because they've sat there so long. So you can do it however you'd like. You can sprout and grind enough for your family for like a month and use that up and then do it again, or just whatever floats your boat. Whatever you do is better than what you were doing before, so you can just feel good about that. Okay, so here's the two types of wheat that I buy, and these are wheat berries. I'll show you these in just a second. I've got the organic hard white wheat berries, and that's what I actually grind for sourdough. That is not what I sprout. And then I've got soft white wheat berries, and those are for sprouting. So this is what they look like. This is the hard wheat. It's got a little bit darker color. Now let me show you the soft wheat. So here it is. You can see it's got a little bit lighter color. That's really the only noticeable difference. All right, so those are the two varieties I buy. There's other varieties you can try out to sprout and to sour. Just depends on your personal taste and preferences. I tried to go with some that don't taste so much like dark whole wheat because that's just my family's preferences. And I kind of tried, and this is a good tip for you guys trying to get into whole food cooking. Sometimes try to kind of ease them into it. Maybe don't go straight from store-bought white sandwich bread that's so soft to just straight whole wheat that's kind of dry and crumbly and expect them to like it, because sometimes they just don't. You got to kind of ease in. Maybe make a half and half, white flour and whole wheat flour, and start there. Or maybe just start with homemade bread made with straight white flour. Just get the unbleached and unbromated, and they'll never know the difference, and ease in that way. But these are the two I chose, and I like to store food. I'm actually going to give you all a pantry tour really soon, maybe even tomorrow. But you do not have to buy that large of quantities from Azure Standard. You can buy a lot less at a time and give it a try and just see how you like it. So let's get busy. Okay, so I'm gonna use a quart jar today. You can use a half gallon, you can use up to a gallon. It doesn't matter, just whatever quantity you want to end up with. You can do multiple gallon jars at a time, just whatever you're going for, however much you want to do at a time. And I'm gonna fill this no more than a third of the way full, because we're gonna soak these and then they are going to expand, they're gonna swell up. Now the certain different types of wheat you buy, that's going to determine how much they swell. So if yours swells more than mine does in this video or less, don't stress. That's just probably because we're using different varieties of wheat, and that's no big deal. All right, next thing I'm going to do is head over and fill this up with water. And I wanted to talk for just a second about water. I've told you before, I recently got a Berkey and I love that thing. We use it all the time. I just believe good water is so important. I shared with you on a different video, but one of the reasons I believe it, and it just struck me a few years ago, is water is the one thing, if we can do that for our health, get good clean water and drink it in enough quantity that we're getting enough water throughout the day, that is something we put in our body on a daily basis. Whether you're a coffee drinker, tea drinker, whether you're soaking your grains, whether you're putting it in your ferments, whether you're cooking with it, whatever the case may be, we're all using water every single day, even if you don't call yourself a water drinker. So I would just encourage you, if you ever get the opportunity to get a Berkey or something comparable to that, do it. I'm going to drop a link down below for that too, in case you're interested in a Berkey. Maybe you got some Christmas money or something and you've been trying to decide what to get and you've always wanted one. So if you're interested in that, click on it. Just go check it out. They have scratch and dent models too. So if that's something you'd be interested in, maybe you could score one of those. I don't know how often those are in stock because it's just probably based on when they have them, but check back and see, maybe you could score a great deal. All right, last thing for this step. I've got my water in my jar all the way to the top. I'm actually going to use this screen. You can get these in the craft section of Walmart or wherever. You could also use a piece of pantyhose at this point and put it over the top of the jar and put a strong rubber band around that. You could use a piece of cloth, just whatever you have, because we're actually going to, after this soaks, we're going to pour water through this screen to drain these off, and then we're going to rinse it another time. So you're going to need something to catch the wheat berries when we drain it off. Okay, so I'm just going to set this to the side. Now at this point you need to let these soak for at least 6 hours and up to 24. Don't go longer than that. You don't want to start introducing bad bacteria. But the first step is, like I said, just let them soak. and then we will come back and we will proceed with this. It's so super easy. It's pretty much hands off. It just takes minutes for a few steps. This is such a great process and great money saving thing to do. So I will see you guys after a while. Okay, so you can see mine has filled up the jar more than it was earlier. It's definitely not filled the jar all the way up. Some varieties of wheat will go ahead and completely fill your jar. It's fine if it did or didn't. At this point, we've soaked it. I've soaked these about 6 hours. You could do this at night and soak it completely overnight. That would be fine. It just all depends. There's no exact science. You just want to soak it for several hours up to overnight. That's where this screen comes in handy. I'm going to drain this water off, and then I've got this bowl here that I'm going to prop it up in so that it will continue to drain and not just sit in a little bit of water. It's basically just like any other type of sprouting that you would do in the jars with the screens on top. We're just trying to encourage this wheat to sprout. So I'm going to set this on my cabinet. I'm not going to leave it down in my sink. And then I will rinse this in the morning, and I'm hoping by then it will actually have sprouted and we can move forward. So if not, I will rinse it then and do this exact same thing again, and we will check back later tomorrow. So it is the next day and the wheat berries have sprouted. I'm going to show you some that is unsprouted versus what we sprouted so that you can tell the difference and you will feel confident when you sprout what you're looking for. And then we're going to get them drying, and this process is pretty much done, and we will talk about where to go from there. All right, so here's the jar of sprouted wheat seeds. I don't know if you can see the little buds forming on them from there, but I'm going to dump them out and show them to you closer. Now I'm dumping these on a mat that goes in my Excalibur dehydrator. This is called a Paraflex sheet. I'm going to link both of those below in case you're interested in those. I fooled around with cheaper dehydrators for years, and it is so wonderful to have a good dehydrator. I would highly recommend the Excalibur. So, but a lot of times, you know what? It's life. You just have to do what you can afford and what you have at the time. Okay, so I'm just going to spread these out on this sheet. I think I only did a quart, so I think this is only going to be about one sheet worth. Okay, now I'm going to try to hold this where y'all can see it. That is some unsprouted wheat. See if it'll focus on that. You can see it has not sprouted at all. Now this is some that has sprouted. I hope it's focusing. And you can see these little white buds that are literally sprouting out of these seeds, and that's how you know you've went far enough. You don't have to sprout to where they've got just huge sprouts coming out of them. You're just trying to get to this point. I may have even could have stopped a couple hours sooner. This is midday. This was actually about a 24-hour process altogether from when I started this video. So they are sprouted great, and they are ready to go in the dehydrator. All right, let me give you a couple tips before we wrap this video up. You can use a dehydrator. Now an Excalibur will go down pretty low, and so I'm actually going to set this about between 105 and 110. That's getting close to about as low as it'll go. That's a good temperature to do it at. But let's say you don't have a dehydrator. Can you do it in your oven? Well, the answer is yes. Most ovens these days will go down to 170. Now, if you have a dehydrator, by all means use that and go at a lower temperature. But it is okay to use a conventional oven that only goes down to 170. That's okay too. We're not talking about the enzymes dying or anything. We're just talking about when you expose them to heat or pressure, they might be they can be activated or deactivated. And so you're not getting the benefit of all those good enzymes if you kill them off. But if you read online, a lot of people will say you can only go 105 to 110, 113 max, and you're going to kill all the enzymes. Well, that is true when you're using a wet heat with something like milk. But when you're using a dry heat like we're doing today, you can actually go up higher. You can actually go up to 150, 170. Some people will even say 185. So if the oven's all you have, go with it. So if you're gonna use the oven method, you're probably gonna dry them for about 6 to 8 hours. You don't wanna go too far and burn them. And a lot of times when I'm dehydrating in my oven, I'll actually crack the door just a tad, especially this time of year, it's cold anyway. So if heat, you know, fills up your kitchen, that feels good anyway. And then that lets some of that moisture out, because that's what you're trying to do, is draw that moisture out. Okay, so we are using the Excalibur. This model is the 3526 model. I'm not even sure you can still get that, but I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna link one really similar below. I'm gonna do this, like I said, on the lowest setting, and I'm actually gonna do it for 24 hours since it's gonna be on such a low temperature. All right, so that's it. That's all there is to sprouting and then drying out your wheat. Now, some people will use it wet. They won't even dry it out. They will grind it up in like their some type of high-powered mixer or something like that, and they will go from there. There's recipes using that. It's gonna be a lot wetter and more like a batter when you get that ground up. So I don't have experience with that. I don't have a recipe for that. I usually dry it out and keep it in my freezer and just use it as needed. That's how we do it. I just pop it in a Ziploc bag, pop it in the freezer, and then I grind as I go. I have a Wonder Mill, but there's all kinds. That's a whole nother topic for another day. All kinds of different grain mills, and a lot of people will use their blender and different things to grind up sprouted flour. So that would just be according to what you have or what you're interested in getting. But that is how you sprout and dry wheat. It's super easy. I hope you give it a try, and it's a whole lot cheaper than buying sprouted flour at the store. Well, I'm gonna hop off here. I'm actually about to make another video for you guys. I've had some interest in a pantry tour, so I'm about to film that, so that will be coming up. I hope y'all stay tuned for that tomorrow, and I will see you guys later. God bless.